Well, hey folks, today we're going to talk about the ideal line, and I'm going to use this little contraption, hopefully to help us figure it out, all right after the intro. Okay folks, in my last video about working on touch, I said something similar up to this. But in the comments, I had somebody ask, how do you know where to set up the hoop to work on this kind of practice? And I said, well, you're trying to set it up so that you're going to be recreating the ideal line for that shot. And he's like, how do you know what the ideal line is? And to be honest, there isn't necessarily one ideal line, especially if you've got open airspace. Now, if you've just got a tunnel and there's only one window that you have to get through, that's the ideal line because that's the only shot you have. But if you've got a situation where you've got room to play, then the lines can go, I mean, you could throw way up here, spike high as a background. You've got so many different options if you've got space to play. So then it comes down to, I said, the ideal line for whatever disc you're using and how you want it to land. And I hope that makes sense, because I can take a birdie and flip it and float it around, but I'd have to make a different kind of shot if I were to throw a tilt or maybe a toro or an entropy. You know, depending on what disc I have, its flight characteristics is going to be different, but there should be an ideal line for that disc. And that's where visualization kind of has to come into play. And I know not everybody can visualize everything. I step up, I look, I see the basket, and it's almost like I can mentally trace an arrow where that disc is going to fly to get to the basket if I throw it right. I kind of plug in the flight characteristics of the disc and know, okay, it's going to do this, and now I've just got to hit it. But some people can't do that, and I understand that, and that's not a knock them. They're better at other things than I am. Math, Excel spreadsheets, there's all kinds of stuff that you do not want me messing with. But so that's some of what the hoop comes in handy. First of all, to help us work on our consistency, but also to give us a waypoint to start dialing in those lines. There was another gentleman on the comments that talked about how he just lets his lizard brain kick in, his natural responses. He just looks at where the target needs to go and he just throws it and his body kind of takes over. And I agree with that. That's more of a natural player, that the body is good at making those calculations and is more of an athlete in that one particular thing and can trust the body to do that. But not everybody can do that. And especially as you're learning, some things, training aids and other things can help you start to visualize what the disc is going to do. And so, got me thinking about it. And so, don't tell my wife I stole one of her cleaning products. And this is high tech right here. Yeah, I just put a good old landmine on this thing. And this is going to help, hopefully, I haven't tried this out. I mean, I'm just shotgunning it right now, but hopefully help you maybe start to visualize what's going on. So let's say I'm back here and I need to get around these bushes and get to the basket, just like I was talking about on the last video. If you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. But I want to do a floaty shot, Anheuser shot, that wraps around here and floats to the basket. So I'm going to throw it out here. And so this is where I'm taking this disc and I'm throwing it on this line right here. So it's going out, it's spinning, and it's traveling this way. And ideally, it's coming through the hoop, kind of at this angle. But there's a little stability in the disc. I know that as it comes around here, it starts to flatten up. And if I've done it right, as it's gliding and coming around, it's flattening up and landing flat as it gets to the basket. And so this is the ideal line, coming through here, coming around here, and back to my hand. But that is the line that I'm trying to hit when I'm making this shot. So in my head, if this hoop isn't here and I'm stepping up here, I'm drawing mentally this shot and how that disc is going to go up, around, and float to the basket. And so that's what we do when we set up the basket for practice. We think, okay, what's the shot I need to work on? I need to work on this touchy around the corner shot. So now we can pretend we're out in the practice field and it's the same shot. We're just recreating the shot here. I'm over here and I'm working in the field and I'm throwing it out and I'm working on getting this same drift around, coming through here and drifting down. And I've put a basket or a marker or whatever over here so that I'm just recreating that same shot just over here. So when you're putting out your hoop or whatever you're using that to recreate the shot you want to do on the field. So there's no one perfect thing here, because I may take a different disc. I may take something less stable and I may just chunk it up and let it have more of a drift around, so I'd throw it flatter. So in that case, if this was, let's say this is an uplink, I'd throw it flatter and let its natural understability drag around, drag around, drag around. And its ideal spot would be different than a birdie or a berg. The thing I'd have to watch out about that is burning it over too much where it just ends up becoming a roller. Whereas if I took something more stable, I would have to throw it even harder this way to counteract the stability of it. I hope that makes sense. This is a tool to help you visualize and become consistent with your throws. For each disc, yes, there is an ideal line, but we don't live in an ideal world. It's going to get us close. It's going to help us start figuring out how that disc works. The thing I like about the hoop is once I get that hoop set up, no matter what disc I have, I can start to see how I can manipulate it through that hoop to get it to land where I want it to go. Because at the end of the day, we want to take whatever disc we have in hand, let's say we're playing a one disc round or whatever, and work on how we can manipulate that disc to get it to the target. Because at the end of the day, it's only about getting that disc to the target. It's not about how it looks, how funny it is, it's just getting it to the target. So it may mean, well, I've got a disc, I can't get it to do that. I may have to switch to a forehand or a thumber or something like that. But we start building these building blocks of understanding how to manipulate our disc instead of making the disc be the one that control our shots. Hope that makes sense. So I hope this helps. The biggest thing to think about oftentimes when you're making the shot is this angle and the nose angle. So it's the attitude and the altitude. So I know when I'm throwing this shot, if I need to get around the corner, I need to make sure that the tilt is about here, depending on the disc. Remember, it's about the disc and the stability of the disc. We're gonna pretend this is a neutral disc, it's a medium disc. On this angle, and then I'm gonna throw it out, but I'm also gonna make sure that I don't have it tilted up like this, because if I do that, what's it gonna do? It's gonna climb up and crash. I'm also gonna make sure I don't have it tilted down like this because I'll burn it over. You wanna make sure when you're practicing, you're setting up that hoop so that it's helping reinforce the ideal release point of your disc so that it'll fly how it should. That's why you're setting that up. If you find yourself, let's say I set this up and I keep having trouble getting it to that spot, well, that usually means if over and over again I keep messing up, that probably means that's not the ideal spot for this disc. I might need to move it over left or right, up or down a little bit to find that sweet spot for that disc. But that's a great telling point of what's going on with that disc and where its ideal spot is for making that kind of shot. Okay, it's starting to rain. This thing is not waterproof, so I hope that helps. I'm going into surgery on Thursday. I'm probably out of commission for a couple of weeks. It's just a little simple surgery. It's nothing major, but I'm not gonna be able to play, so I'm gonna try to fill some of these in, but I hope to see you out on the course.